They
Got
got
it?
it?
Yep. Oh, thank heavens. Okay, I couldn't get to this point, so I was
Okay.
all right, dismiss the YouTube TV window.
Hmm.
All right, now, um, I believe when you start the Zoom meeting, like just stay in this room, don't exit this room, okay?
Hmm.
And you're going to go through the normal process of letting everybody in, the chairs and the presenters, and doing the
Hmm.
interview check, just like normal. And then I think it should just start streaming.
Do you think you should like check on a different device, or I should check on a different device just to like try that real quick? I don't know if we can because there's like two random people in the waiting room. I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah. Um, Let me try something because the problem is how to check it.
So yeah,
Um,
who are these people?
they're probably just attendees.
Okay, yeah, they're attendees. Why are they here so early? But
Good
all
question.
right.
Um, all right, let me think. I need to go to YouTube. Um,
I could try like pulling this up on my phone at the same time, but like, are you at all going to be on hand-ish?
Unfortunately, I'm not because I've got this
Okay.
appointment at 2. That's the problem.
Tom and I are both here, so like I'm hoping that means, and he's hoping too that like we don't even have to worry about this bit, but we'll see.
There's over 1,000 registrants, so it's going to be really close because this is a
Yeah,
very popular topic.
just thinking it through, but just letting you know what like his where his thoughts are as well.
Sure. Um,
Well,
what
I guess if it doesn't go, what should I be checking?
um,
Sorry, I haven't done this before, so just running it through.
Yeah, I haven't done this in like 2 years, so I'm
Okay.
trying to remember. Grab the URL in the YouTube URL in the address bar,
That's
and
here right now.
yeah, and please send that to me through Teams.
Yeah. All right, you should be receiving that
Okay,
shortly.
let me check any browser I don't normally use. Okay, it's working. I can see.
All right, you should be receiving that shortly.
And there's an echo because I'm on both computers. Okay,
Okay, well that's very good to know.
yeah. All right, so what you and Tom are going to need to do, you're going to run the session like normal.
Hmm.
And if you hit that 500 mark where people can't get in, I don't know if you had to
Oh,
do
is
that.
it 500, not 1,000? That's a bit, yeah, that would be part of the problem then.
It
Okay.
was 1,000 and I was wrong. So Julie is looking at, see, we don't know if we can increase the license this quickly. That's the problem.
Right, of course.
I suspect we won't be able to, and it's like $1,000 to do it. So,
Yeah.
um, when you get to the 500 mark, if people can't get in, they're going to be stuck in the waiting room.
Hmm.
And when you look at the waiting room, like if you pull up the participants list, there's a way to message the people in the waiting room.
Yeah, it looks like it's just message. You just hit that, maybe?
Exactly.
Okay, waiting room participants, and then I can send them the streaming link.
Exactly. Just say we're at capacity in this room. Please go here to watch.
Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll be additionally sure then to start this a little before um the actual session is set to start so that if people are coming in and having problems, I can figure that out as well.
Yeah, but like I say, don't leave the Zoom room.
No, I certainly won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll be here like at the ready.
Yeah. If something goes wrong, you can call me. Um, I'm putting my cell phone number in Teams.
And indeed, do you want me to like text you that everything's going fine so you don't have to worry or
That would be great.
yeah, I can do that then. All right, let me jot that down. That way all you got to think about is your appointment.
Okay. Uh, all right. I'm going to let Tom and Julie know that I think we're okay. Like there's a plan B.
Okay.
All right.
Should
So,
I stop sharing
yeah.
for the
So,
time being? Okay. And I guess what does that do to the stream also?
well, so what it's going to do, the stream is going to display whatever is on your screen.
Okay.
So the stream is going to show you doing the AV check, even though the people in the waiting room in Zoom can't see it.
Okay.
But I don't care because,
Yeah, I
you know,
doubt we're gonna have to worry about some random people watching the AV check. Yeah. All
exactly.
right.
It's not like you're giving away personally identifiable information. So,
No, yeah. I'll certainly close out these millions of tabs as it's happening, but or rather, I'll just keep it on that screen. But
yeah.
yeah, that makes sense to
And
me.
what I'm going to do is, let me double check the schedule here.
So I'm just leaving it streaming right now then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
We
that's
don't
fine.
have to touch anything if we can help
Nope,
it.
no worries.
Um, I'm gonna switch things. I'm gonna have Amber take your 3 o'clock slot because you'll be on this.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have Amber watch. Well, we're not on Twitter anymore. I guess I'll have Amber watch social media or email in case people are emailing because they can't get in.
Yeah, and then I guess I don't know if they would be reaching out via LinkedIn or Instagram. Doubtful, I guess.
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, I'll ask her to keep an eye on direct messages there
Yeah.
just in case.
Should
So
I be on anything else today if I'm giving away the 3 p.m. then?
no,
Okay. Just
no,
making
Tom is
sure.
at the 1 o'clock now. You'll be on the 2 o'clock. Amber will take the 3 o'clock, and we should be good.
Okay, fabulous. I'm sorry this happened.
Yeah, me too. It's my fault though. So
Well, it
uh,
sounds like we'll have it sorted. I'll just keep everything as it is.
yes, yes. I'm glad it worked for you. I was really worried. All right. Thanks for responding so quickly.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Alrighty, bye-bye. Hi, Doug. How are you today?
Oh, all right. Now it looks like it's working fine. Hi, Mia.
Hi there. All
Blix.
right, we're
What a name. That's fantastic. And I can say it with loins.
there you go. I'm on the
Fantastic. Where are
lookout
you,
for
Mia?
everybody else that's meant to come in. Let me give you, do you know who's going to be sharing your slides today?
It's going to be Paul.
Okay. Oh, and here comes Paul.
Here's Paul.
Slowly getting people in here.
I've been camped out here since 9 this morning, just itching.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. I'm exaggerating. But
Oh,
I
I
did
was like,
get on.
now
I,
hang on a
I,
second. You
I
didn't have to go
did
that far, did
try to
you?
log in 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry, we've been taking care of like 20 different things on this.
Honestly, right?
Me, I'm here for backup if you need anything, okay?
Oh, thank you so much, Amber.
Sure. This is our biggest one, I think.
Yes. I think this is somebody. In fact, why don't I give you, oh, you got co-host already. If you can keep an eye out for chair names. I'm slowly getting people in. Thanks so much. That's helpful.
Sure.
And Jenny probably alerted you that we're doing a YouTube stream as well, since there's so many dang people.
Yeah.
How
So
many are we talking about?
we've got 1,100 registered,
Yeah,
and our
that's
license only holds so many, less than that.
That's like a very large town.
Yes, so we may be ending up hitting the stream button and getting in on that.
Hello,
How are you all doing?
I'm good. I'm Keiko, and everybody's already pretty much in here. That's
Paul, do
great.
you have the capability of sharing those slides right now? If not, I can give you the permissions or more permissions.
I have some kind of introduction slides, so maybe can I just try it out?
Go for it. Yes.
Okay, so
We're just running
share
whatever checks are needed.
slide. Okay, okay, the host disable screen. Okay, and then share. Oop. Participant screen, host disabled participant screen sharing, it says.
Let me
That's you, Mia.
see. That would be me. I didn't mean to.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to give you co-host.
Oh, thank you.
Let me know if that still doesn't work.
Okay, let me check.
Mia, you need to give me co-host. Well, you need to give everybody co-host.
Yeah, it's still, I'm getting the same thing, message.
Okay. Let me, you were saying, Amber, sorry, or was somebody saying?
This is Malaka. You need to give everybody co-host
Oh,
abilities.
yes, go for it. Sorry, I will do that. Sorry, I haven't done this a
Amber
huge
could.
amount of times.
I'm not able to, it looks like. I'm
All right, let me see what we can do. Who can share? All right. Try that now. I'm hoping that works, but I'm gonna run through and
Yes.
still, okay. Awesome.
I got it. Okay, so where is my?
Sorry, I'm still going through and making
Mm.
co-hosts and letting in
Where's my
chairs.
slide? Okay, there's so many things open. Okay, where is my slide? Here. Share.
Let's see, who are we missing?
Alright. Oh, gosh.
It looks like Paul dropped.
Oh.
Oh, there
Oh,
he
Paul
is.
dropped?
No,
No,
he's here.
I'm still here. I'm still
Hey,
here.
Paul.
In fact, Mia, I think you won't need to enable Doug as co-host because I'm going to advance the slides for him. So as long as I can share, that's good
Okay,
enough
you
for both
should
of
be
us.
able to now, but let me know if it doesn't work.
Yeah, it looks like it will. It's going to override. Let me just quickly test. Yeah, I think I
Okay.
got it. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
yes.
And then I'll
right.
hop between everybody. Okay.
All right, that's great. Okay, so let me just.
And
Let's
Mia,
see. 1, 2, yes.
in theory, I was supposed to start the recording, but even the co-host rights aren't letting me do that. So you'll need to
Oh,
start the recording.
Yes, I can definitely do that then. Sorry if I am. And then, oh yeah, no, I can be here for the whole thing and just remain host, right?
Yeah.
Are there any chairs that haven't yet? It looks like Jody. Is there anyone else? Nate, maybe?
Yeah.
Kiko is our co-chair.
Oh, Nate is here. I'll let him in.
What about the first speaker?
There's Jody as well. Okay.
Yeah, and Adina.
Yeah, the first speaker is not here.
Yeah, Adina Marciano.
Adina as well. Let's see. There's a big old list. Ah, there we go.
Hello, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Great.
We'll go
Yes.
through and make some co-hosts.
All right, I thought I was in the wrong place.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
There's been
so
a lot
I
of
think-
chaos happening at the moment.
Okay,
I'm kind of on here
so-
unexpectedly. We had to take care of some overflow. Have we got
great.
everybody now? I think we got all the chairs.
I think so. So is that Sai and me and Adina and Oren Doug and Jody.
And I believe
and
I have
Nate.
gone through and made everyone co-host, but please let me know if that's not the case.
Kiko, can you show your video?
Okay, that's okay. I'm gonna share my slide again and then make it as a presentations. Is that everybody can see as my?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so but is there anybody else wanted to try it out? I just gonna get out one more time.
Sure, let me try.
Yes.
Share screen. Blank presentation.
Well, we can see PowerPoint, Nate, so that's good.
Yeah, I got the wrong one.
It's a very spare.
I'm just gonna wing it.
though. As you
All
can
right.
see, imagine if you will.
But it looks like it's working, so that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is. Yeah, you can share.
Whenever folks are ready for me to like open up the room, let me know, and then
Let me just
I'll
try
like
to
just
share.
run this little intro like slide loop.
Uh-huh.
Right, you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
and you can hear
Okay,
me, so we're good.
yeah, I can see that.
I
Anybody
should
else?
probably try to.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Jody.
Sorry for the chaos, everybody.
Yeah, it works.
Yes. Beautiful. Yes.
And also
been-
on my audio, is there any bleed? Because I'm in a conference room and I can hear a meeting in the next room. through the
I don't hear
window.
anything at the
Yeah,
moment.
I think you are pretty clear.
Okay,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to know. All right, I will stop sharing.
Okay, so but I'm trying to keep track of the time. What's the best way to like what alarm the speaker? It's a what's what is that? Is that
Prompt.
chat? People can see the chat when they are presenting?
If it's full screen, they might not be able to see the chat.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I usually think.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? What is the what's the issue precisely you're trying to resolve? Just like can you be notified of the time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have so 3 different presentations. So
How long do you want to go each?
So usually 15, I mean, just a little bit over, no problem, but then it goes a little too far, then maybe I need to warm the presenter. Maybe I'm
Okay.
just gonna go in. Oh, hi, Tom.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
You're good.
Tom, we were just talking about how they might be able to like how we might be able to know give them like a heads up on the time because they might not be able to see the chat. Would it be all right to like cut in with our voices or
I just message
Hmm.
the panelists and everyone. We should be able to do that in the chat. If
does that normally still show up?
You can make it show up.
Oh.
When you start sharing, all you have to do is click on chat from the bottom and it will pop up on the screen.
Okay,
so
I had
you'll
a
be able to
feeling
see
there
it.
was a way around that. Okay, perfect.
Well, while I'm talking, Doug and I were discussing this. We were going to take questions at the end of our presentations. Is that how you want to do it for everyone, or do you want to just wait for everyone
No,
to
yeah,
present?
I think all the presentation first and then question at the very end, all the
Okay.
questions.
So all questions at the end. So we
Yeah.
won't ask for. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. Okay, maybe we should prepare for open up.
We better do that shortly. Yeah,
Okay,
we're
so
gonna need a lot of
I'm
people
gonna
coming
show
in.
my slide then. Okay.
Yeah, let's not even bother with the intro loop. Yeah, Tom, at this point.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
oop.
Now that we're like so close to time.
This is our
All right.
biggest one. Maybe we should, though.
Oh, do you want
Well,
me
I can if
want
we
me to
wish.
do it?
Yeah.
We have 1,000 people on this one. I think we should.
Okay.
People, oh my God.
All right. Yeah, I can just start streaming that and then
I can
I'll
also
cut it
do
and
it
share
if you need me to.
What's that?
I can also if you need me to.
Do you have it pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, that would be great because yeah, I've just got it as a video file because I think there's been some struggle with Canva. All
Okay.
right.
I can stop it whenever you all tell me to. And
Okay.
I'm ready almost.
All right, Leah, let me know and I'll hit that
Share my screen. Okay.
hit that admit all button. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. In they all come. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
We are still waiting for people to come in, right?
Well, Keiko, you can get started now, probably.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Should I share my screen? It's okay. Hi, everyone. Oh, great. Okay, so recording started. Share my slide. Hello everyone. Can you hear me okay? I hope it's
Yes.
yeah, audio is good. Okay, let's start. And the recording is on, I hope. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, so hi everyone. So this is LA Core Interest Group Week, and this is MARC format transition interest group session. Welcome. Okay, so first of all, thank you to the core for organizing, coordinating, monitoring the session, and sharing the core code of conduct. So let's see. How do I go? All right. Okay. So I'm Keiko Suzuki, the new school, and along with my colleague Saiden from the University of Central Florida, we are the current co-chair of this interest group. And we will share all the slides and recording of this. And we have actually another session. And once available later through the our interest groups, LA Connect website showing here. Okay. So, okay, today we are pleased to hold our part 1 session titled MARC and BibFrame of the IG Week program to explore the current state of the MARC formats and their transition into the linked data environment. We have 3 presentations listed here this afternoon, and we will get through all the presentation first, and then we will cover the question at the very end. But meanwhile, please post your questions to the chat and we will monitor them throughout the session. Okay, so by the way, actually our second session, part 2, is coming next week, Friday 15th, and featuring another 3 fantastic presentations. So I hope you can also attend the part 2. I'm hoping I can show this QR code to register later on. Okay. Let me go in. Okay, and so, but anyway, we have lots to cover. So I just, without any delay, just dive into it. So I'm just gonna stop sharing. And then our first speaker is Adina Marciano, Product Manager for Linked Open Data at Exlibris. Adina, you can share your screen. So. Her presentation is called Creating the Hybrid Sustainable Environment for MARC and BibFrame. So, yeah.
All right,
Go
thank you,
ahead,
Keiko.
Adina.
Thank you for having me. You can see my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm a product manager for Linked Open Data working at Alma, working for Alma and Exlibris. I'm going to just cover a few different topics. I know I only have 15 minutes and these are a lot of interesting and extensive topics and we'll only touch the surface, but it's really important for me to share with you. We'll talk a little bit about linked open data formats and how it works in Alma. We'll talk about how you can use linked open data capabilities with MARC records and what challenges we face when using linked open data services in a complete ecosystem. And are MARC and BibFrame truly compatible or not? Which is, I'm sure, a huge discussion. So I've been working at Exlibris for 10 months already, completely focused on linked open data. And I've been discussing a lot of different challenges, a lot of different aspects. And some of them are here. You can see them on the slide. A lot of it has to do with dealing with global information versus local information in BibFrame and linked open data formats. What do you do when you have multiple identifiers? How can the MARC and the BibFrame live side by side when we have a MARC format, which is established and pretty much solidified over 60 years? What do we do now with all these new, multiple new formats that are expanding and becoming part of the environment? And how can we really support this all at scale? So there are a lot of questions, a lot of challenges, and we are working towards them because it's part of what we want to do and part of what we believe in. So how does this work in Alma? Alma is based on a unified format, meaning we take any metadata format that you're using, whether it's MARC, whether it's BibFrame, and it's all combined into a single unified format, which on that we base our workflows. So that way we can have MARC and BibFrame living side by side, meaning each institution can choose at what pace they want to move on the journey to linked open data. You can choose to stay completely in MARC and add linked data capabilities to the MARC records, which I'll discuss shortly. You can take one collection, catalog it in the Sinopia and send it to Alma. And you can have a one bit frame testing the workflows, learning how it works. And you can also decide to convert your whole catalog if you'd want to. Although there are, I think, a few more stages that need to be done to support a complete conversion of a catalog. But the whole idea here is that you can choose your own pace. And since it's based on a unified format, we can also bring a lot more linked data capabilities to the MARC records themselves, which will allow us a better transition into the BibFrame environment. So let's talk about that a bit more. We have these capabilities of expanding linked open data functionalities for MARC records in Alma. The first one, which I'm sure a lot of you know, is we have the URI enrichment options. You can do it whether manually through Alma Refine, where you can add external resources, whether it's ORCID, Wikidata, Homosaurus, Getty, and any other external resource that supports URIs. In addition, we also have the ability to add URIs to linked authorities when you're publishing your information on the fly. Recently, we've added the ability to also add these enrichments through our API services. And in the next release, we will also be making this configurable, allowing our users to add more authorities that they want to, whether they're local or part of the CZ. As long as the records are linked, they can add them. They'll be able to add VF URIs. They'll be able to choose if you want it in a subfield 0 or in a subfield 1. I'm sorry, somebody, there's background noise. If you can please mute your microphone. So we'll have all these different capabilities then will be configurable, so each institution can choose how they want to enrich their MARC records. In addition, we also have, we are also expanding and enhancing, taking these capabilities of linking the records and adding URIs to them to the next level, which means we're taking records that are linked to authorities and combining that with Wikidata information to create info cards and person pages. This will allow institutions to see curated, accurate information about any person in the next all titles search, and also as part of the authority selection process in the metadata editor. And the idea here is that we are basing it on high quality information that is provided through Library of Congress name authorities and combining it with additional information from Wikidata. And that way you can get an extensive and more enhanced experience about the person, in addition to adding related records, meaning you can see additional records that the same contributor is part of, or if he's a subject of them. So this way you get a linked data experience regardless of the metadata format. I think that's an important aspect here. Because again, if the record is linked to an authority, we can supply this information. So you have a linked data capability, even in MARC records, and it's a very important one. And I'm happy to announce this will be available by the end of 2024. In addition to having the info cards, which are based on Library of Congress information, we are also using VF to extend these capabilities to additional authorities so that all users can enjoy them. So this is a lot of what we're doing to allow our users to enhance and expand what they have in terms of linked data in MARC records, which I believe is the first phase in moving on towards linked data in the full, because this way you can add and enrich your records, and afterwards, when you convert it to a BibFrame record, you'll be able to already have a strong base of information that you can count on, and there will be less manual work to correct the information once it's in BibFrame. So I want to touch on another aspect, which is linked open data services, which provide systems to extract URIs for MARC or BibFrame records, whether it's Library of Congress, Wikidata, et cetera. There are a lot of different systems, and we are attached to a lot of them, linked to a lot of them, whether through Alma Refine or other systems. And these are crucial to create the global ecosystem for linked open data. And the question is, what happens when you have one institution cataloging and requesting these services? It works fine. But what happens when you have more than one? What happens if you have multiple institutions requesting services at the same time. These systems need to be stable enough to support large scale. And this is one of the main challenges that we have in ALMA, and we are facing them and dealing with them by creating caching systems where we store the information and without editing it, without changing it, and updating it frequently. And that way we can create sustainable linked data services without having to crash API services. And in addition, we are also working with labels when we're talking about BibFrame. We already started testing with our focus group on testing BibFrame records in production, in their sandbox environments and moving towards production. But using the labels that are cataloged when manually activating these API services is crucial for the workflows later in ALMA, because that way we don't have to turn to the authority and the API services for every single record and every single authority, but the labels can serve the purpose for the workflows. Now, another question or another big discussion, which we've been discussing a lot also with our focus group, and I believe is going to be a main question throughout the coming years, is how much are MARC and BibFrame truly compatible? And what challenges are we facing when doing this? So for on one hand, we have the BibFrame, which is richer and more detailed descriptions. You have a hierarchy format, which allows you to extend your descriptions and to be more accurate with them. You have more extensive relations, more extensive roles, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different examples. And some of it is compatible and some of it we can convert easily, but there are certain aspects where you can't, you have a data loss, and there's a discussion of what is a good enough compatibility and how much data loss would truly be acceptable. It's a difficult discussion, and we've been going through it a lot with our focus group, taking specific examples. We understand how we can support the conversions because we're working in a hybrid environment, and some institutions will still need to be able to convert the BibFrame to MARC. So we were discussing what workflows could be the same, meaning which ones we can convert the BibFrame and use it the same way, and for which ones we would need to make an extension for the workflow that would be specific to linked open data formats. For example, the URIs. Okay, records. MARC records don't have a URI, but the BibFrame work and the BibFrame instance have URIs that represent the entity itself. And we've added and extended these URIs into our workflows and added them in order to support linked data capabilities that are only special for linked data, side by side with the other capabilities. For example, we have the deduping rules, which have a list of different functions that that users can choose to apply for the deduping rules. We've added the work URI as another rule, meaning if you have BibFrame records, you can take the instances and dedupe them by the work URI, along with other rules, or just by the URI, based on your choice. And that would be creating something that is unique for BibFrame. So it's a balance between all these different questions, and can we really create an environment that works well with both formats? And this is definitely a balancing act. And I think that we're actually doing it quite well, because I can see the feedback from our focus group, and we're moving in a positive direction with this. But the true question really becomes, when and how does compatibility between the two formats become a second priority? Right now, we're putting a lot of focus on this because we understand the needs, because it's a hybrid environment, and because we have the need to convert to support external systems as well. And so that the workflows won't be damaged with this transition into BibFrame or any linked data format. But I think at some point within the coming years, I think compatibility will have to get a second priority in order to expand and enhance the true linked data capabilities, and not just having another metadata format in ALMA. And this is really a challenge that we face ahead at defining when would be the right point to do this changeover. We are working on both options and both functionalities, both the compatibility and adding new capabilities that will be solely for BibFrame. And whether, again, we have these great linked data capabilities like the info cards and person pages that will be available for both formats. And the more you link your MARC records, the more info cards and linked data capabilities you'll also get for those MARC records. So I just want to finish with this beautiful quote, which I think truly represents where we stand. I think it's definitely a difficult road with a lot of questions, a lot of challenges on all the different phases of it, whether it's working just with MARC and linked open data capabilities or working in a hybrid environment. But I truly believe that the destination that we're going to is definitely worth it. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Adina. Wow. Okay, so I think we just need to moving along. So our next speaker are Paul Frank, cataloging policy specialist, Library of Congress, and Doug Loines, product owner, EBSCO Information Services. Okay, so that yes, slide is ready. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Keiko, and thank you for the invitation to talk about the Library of Congress BibFrame initiative and what we're doing with our new provider, EBSCO, and Doug Loines is here to share the presentation with me. I'm going to start with the first part and talk about what we're calling the thin thread with our EBSCO implementation at the Library of Congress, and then Doug will follow with a moving forward where we're going from here. Little bit of we're very much traditionalists at the Library of Congress, and we've been working in BibFrame since 2014. It's a long time to be piloting something and experimenting with something, but the process was very exciting. We started in 2014 with a BibFrame editor that was so bare bones that it couldn't even save data. All it was an editor where you would input data using BibFrame, and there would be RDF generated, but it wasn't added to a shared data store, database, whatever you want to call it. So there had been iterative work done over the years on BibFrame, constantly improving until we have what is now called the Marva BibFrame editor. And the reason I made the allusion to us being traditionalists, we asked our BibFrame pilot participants to help us name the editor. You know, you really need to give a name to something. If you just call it a generic title, it doesn't take on these sort of human characteristics that a named system would. So our catalogers sent in suggestions, and we ended up going with Marva, which you might not recognize as the historical background. Henriette Avram was the person at the Library of Congress who really was the responsible person for getting the MARC formats going at the Library of Congress. And so Marva is her name in reverse, the name Avram spelled backwards. And so we thought this was a nice way to recognize her contribution, Henriette Avram's contribution, but then look forward to the new way of doing things in for bibliographic description and for discovery. So our BibFrame pilot was quite a success, and when we agreed to sign our contract with EBSCO in 2022 for EBSCO to provide our next library platform, we knew that we wanted BibFrame to be a big part of it. What we did after we signed the contract and started working with EBSCO staff was turn Marva over to them. You know, there were options on the table to create a new linked data editor altogether, or use what we had. And Marva had become so well developed and so productive here at the Library of Congress, it just made a lot of sense for us to pass that over to EBSCO. And colleagues at EBSCO, Doug primarily, Doug who will be talking to you in just a few seconds, started taking Marva, working with the development team and remodeling it to make it more extensible for a broader community. Marva, when it was used at the Library of Congress, was strictly an internal tool. We could share the code and you could play with it externally, but we wanted something that could be used by more libraries than just the Library of Congress. So EBSCO has done that extensiveness, or brought that extensive quality to Marva and made it a much more useful tool across the world, and anyone will be able to use it. So in our implementation, our Folio implementation, or we call it LCAP, Library of Congress Access Platform, LCAP project, we will be having a rolling implementation. We'll be starting with acquisitions this fall, 2024, and we expect metadata management, which is cataloging, including BibFrame, to follow sometime in 2025, probably in March for MARC, and then BibFrame after that. When we started working with EBSCO after we turned over the Marva editor, our initial testing was called the thin thread. And this sounds like a few steps backwards from the functionality that we had in the BibFrame pilot here at the Library of Congress was quite extensive. But we knew that we were entering an environment where we had to live with MARC and BibFrame in the same database. We had never done that before. Throughout the BibFrame pilot, BibFrame descriptions were in one pot, MARC descriptions were in another pot. And we now are facing a world where those two interact. And that will be the focus primarily of my colleagues, Jody and Nate, when they talk about some of the work that we're doing in that area. But my job working with the BibFrame pilot participants was to test what is called this thin thread. It's no more than a proof of concept. EBSCO released Marva to the pilot libraries in EBSCO in December of 2023. So between December 2023 and January of this year, we did some testing of this thin thread. And it was basically no more than verifying that you could do certain things in the Marva editor. We had, when Marva came back to us, it looked a lot different from the Marva that we handed over to EBSCO. So we had to prepare ourselves to get used to that new way of looking at things. But by the way, the new design was based on UX design feedback that EBSCO conducted on our behalf, working with catalogers here and a UX designer. And what happened was we ended up with test scripts. Now I'm able to show these now because they're on an internal Confluence site that we have. So you won't be able, I'll have to remove the link for the final publication. But here are the test scripts that we did. Can you create a new instance? Can you edit an existing instance? Can you search for things? Can you find things that you want? So it was really, really basic. And we were able to sign off on the testing in January and say, yes, Marva met the requirements that we had established in the thin thread. And as a result, now you will be able to eventually see the Marva app in the Folio suite of tools. And here's a screenshot showing Marva editor and a search on all resources, wonderful filtering capabilities here. And then the second image I have is just showing a user design influenced input area where you were describing an instance and connecting it to an existing work. So we're very happy with the results so far, but we're just getting started. And now I'm going to turn it over to Doug to carry on with what's coming next.
Thanks very much, Paul. So I'm going to look at the timeline and then focus on one aspect of the BibFrame project. So we have three major deliverables in 2024. In May, we're going to have an alpha release, and that will be to our pilot libraries. In addition to Library of Congress, we have Grand Valley State University from Michigan and the University of Concepcion in Chile, and we may have other libraries join. in the alpha. We're looking forward to that. And then in September, we'll have a beta release, and that's going to sew things up before we get ready for the big production release to the Folio community in November. And that's referred to as the Ramson's release. If you're not familiar, Folio has flower releases or releases named after flowers that are alphabetical. We're actually releasing the Kisnelia release or the Q release this spring, and then the R release or the Ramson's release will come in November. Next slide, Paul. So the alpha release, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's going to be focused on building functionality into the BibFrame editor, essentially. We're going to be adding more features and functions to the search and to the search results and to the edit screens to offer different use cases for the catalogers. And when that is made available in May, we're going to have all the pilot libraries hit it very rigorously so that we know that the BibFrame part of this is taken care of. So that will be its own track. But what I would spend maybe a minute on here is the next slide, Paul, is the beta. We wanted to kind of address that environment that's going to have both BibFrame and MARC happening in parallel. And so the focus of the beta is going to be on that interoperability between the new Folio module and how it's going to work with existing Folio platform. So our approach to this is that there will be two separate workflows that are operating in parallel. For the Library of Congress, there will be a group of catalogers who will be conducting their cataloging in BibFrame using the Marva editor that Paul mentioned. There will be other catalogers who will be conducting their work in MARC using a quick MARC editor in Folio. So it very, very quickly into the conversations as we were fleshing out the features, data governance came up. How are we going to come up with, we being the Library of Congress, how is Library of Congress going to come up with the policies that will govern how data will be managed in those parallel workflows to enforce data integrity? At the same time, we want to have synchronicity between these two environments. From a cataloger's perspective, they need to know all the work that's going on each side. So the MARC catalogers have to understand and be able to see the output of the BibFrame side, and vice versa. The BibFrame catalogers will have to be aware of what's happening on the MARC side. So we spent some time fleshing that out on-site visits, and I think we have a plan forward. Next slide. That's actually going to be covered in the next presentation on transition complications. Nate Trail specifically is going to get into some details about our approach to that. But that was a huge consideration for how we're going to support this. I should also just say that when the BibFrame module is released, it's going to be available for use by libraries. It's not going to be something that replaces anything. It's an additive. So for those libraries who are interested in experimenting with BibFrame, that's going to be available. It's meant to be something to be introductory in some ways, and then if it's robust enough for the library, having gone through the training and so forth, then it's meant to be a part of your cataloging environment. So we're looking forward to making that available as far as part of Folio. Next slide. And then maybe just a summary of what to expect with the system in November with the first production release. We'll be able to search for resources through the Marva interface, and transformation is built off those historical collections. We'll be able to create new cataloging resources, both copy cataloging and original cataloging. We're going to provide the ability for catalogers to inspect the links themselves, in addition to being able to perform the cataloging workflow. The last mile cataloging at the item and holdings level will be conducted inside Folio. So the descriptive cataloging will happen with Marva, and then that part of the cataloging for item and holding will be performed in inventory. And then everything that's done coming out of the BibFrame workflow, that will be part of inventory too, so that it can be discovered for patrons through the OPAC. So I think that's it for our presentation. And I think we can hand it over now to our colleagues, Jody and Nate. Thank you for your
Okay.
time. Thank you for inviting us.
Great. Thank you, Doug and Paul. And so, yes, actually, we are doing pretty good for our time. Yeah. So our final presenters are Nate Trail, Link Data Specialist, and Jody Williamson, the Metadata Standard Specialist from the Library of Congress. So, and the title, Transition Complications. So, yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Oh, can you see my slide, governing
Yes.
principle? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So as Doug spoke about, I'm going to be covering what we're considering the governing principle, and that is which description are we talking about will control the main way of editing a cataloging record, whether it's BibFrame or MARC. And we are doing this from the perspective of Folio, but we believe that this principle should be useful in any system that's trying to do a hybrid environment. Okay, so we'll go over what's the idea, and then implications for catalogers, implications for bulk edit, and then some conclusions. So we know that we can't fully implement BibFrame independent of MARC because we need to be able, as Library of Congress, to distribute our records as MARC for some time to come. And we also realize that all of our records originate in MARC, and we're not going to lose that. So we need to be able to handle things on both sides. But going back and forth between the two is really problematic because they're so radically different from each other. And if you're trying to make edits in one format, you can't necessarily directly, automatically translate that into an edit in the other format. So we're going to need this hybrid system, and all the records should be in sync so that whichever side of the system you're on, you can understand your catalog in that environment. So as I said, systems will start with MARC records, and they will all be transformed from MARC to BibFrame. But at the beginning, they will be controlled or editable only in MARC. But trained catalogers that are authorized will be able to open a MARC governed record and edit their BibFrame version and save it. And once you've saved a description in BibFrame, that description is now going to be controlled by BibFrame going forward. So catalogers, in a MARC editor, you'd be able to call up a description that was edited in BibFrame, but you would not be able to edit it. On the BibFrame side, you could call up a MARC record and you can edit it as long as you're one of the people that are trained to do so. So there's two editors and two stores, but they are interlinked. When you save a record, we're considering it mirrored because we send it through a MARC to BibFrame transformation and save it as BibFrame if you're on the MARC side, and a BibFrame to MARC transformation and save it in the record store if you're on the other side. Okay, so the governing record is going to be a flag called source probably, or some kind of a flag, and it will probably not be in the record itself. It will be in more administrative metadata because it's not about the resource that you're talking about. Okay, and this is what I was talking about, where you can open something in BibFrame, and even though it's source MARC, you can flip it to source equals BibFrame. But on the MARC side, you cannot flip it from BibFrame back to MARC, because we want eventually for all descriptions to be governed as BibFrame over time. So this will have implications for bulk edit as well, because it's virtually impossible to design a query system that could translate your desired edit into both a MARC edit thing and a BibFrame edit engine. So we decided that it's going to be easier to say you have to do two editing systems, and each of them speaks the language of the format that you're talking about. One key distinction between bulk edit and individual catalogers is that catalogers will be able to make that flip from a MARC governing record to a BibFrame resource governing. But a bulk edit process on BibFrame descriptions will not actually flip the governing resource to BibFrame. We feel that that's a little too broad because if you decided you wanted to change all the 245As to add a period at the end or something, immediately your entire catalog would now be described and governed by BibFrame. And we only want those resources that people know how to edit to be BibFrame resources. And here's a couple of cases and just walking through the types of changes that might need to be made. So if you have a typo in the title, on the BibFrame side, you have to go into all the instance BF title, main titles, and make the edit. And then the transform will save it back into MARC. And on the MARC side, you run a different query that only looks for MARC governed records, and it replaces the 245A with the correct text, and then it's mirrored over on the BibFrame side. Another case, if you wanted to, if you brought a name under control, maybe you remove from a catalog from the name, and then you add a link to its name authority record. So on the BibFrame side, you have an agent, and it has the URL in red, and the text is updated, and that text is mirrored on the MARC side. And then you have to run the same thing, looking for all 1xx's and 7xx's, make the same text change, and add a $1 with the URI. All right, so if you add a death date to a name authority, this is where it starts to get interesting, and where you see the advantages of BibFrame, which is that if your system is using URIs correctly or well, you would not need to make any change, because when you call up this bib record, it could go look up the current label, and the death date is automatically supplied, so you do not have to make any change. And already in MARC systems like Folio, if you do this, they let you say, they actually run this batch job for you behind the scenes. So they've already developed this on the MARC side. It goes into all your bibs, and it will update the death date in all of your bib records. Okay, changing a resource type. This is a little bit more, it's BibFrame only. So if you decide that your BF subjects should no longer be conference names, but BF meetings, that has no implication on the MARC side, but you will need to remirror all of your MARC records because the transformation will not be correct until you've done that. Okay, so by keeping this governing principle in place, we believe that it makes it small enough so that each side can do its own edits and follow its own rules. And you will not overlay BibFrame edits that someone has done by hand. And the direction is only one way, because we want to move toward BibFrame entirely, but we're starting with both. Thanks.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you all the speakers, and
So,
thank you for
yeah, is it Jody's?
Yes, I'm getting
Okay,
set up.
yes, yeah, go ahead, Jody.
So I'm Jody Williamson from the Network Development and MARC Standards Office, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about some data conversion projects that we've had, turning data from MARC into BibFrame and from BibFrame into MARC, and how it's impacted our changes. The biggest thing is that the Library of Congress has a requirement and a commitment to distribute MARC records. And so a lot of the changes that we have made over the last year have really been influenced by that more than anything. Some quick examples are that we've started adding BF status, URIs, and labels to different parts of the MARC record when it becomes a BibFrame description, and because it helps drive creation of specific indicators in specific MARC tags when the data is converted from BibFrame to MARC. So we recently added status to provision activity data for serials records only. And if the serial has a status of current, it will go back into MARC in a 2.6x field with an indicator 1 of blank. But if it's, or I'm sorry, of 3, but if it's an integrating resource type, then it will become a 2.6x field with an indicator 1 of blank. And if the status is earliest for a serials, then it gets the 2.6x field with the indicator 1 of blank. And this is and then if it has no status, it will get the intervening status byte of 1 in the first indicator. We've also done kind of the same thing with classification numbers to split which first indicator of an 050 should be assigned. So if it's an LCCN, it has used by agency, meaning that we're using that call number, and then that will create a first indicator of 0 in the 050. These were sort of easier adjustments to make because you're just adding a field, you're mapping it accordingly, and it's not retained in the MARC record. Our larger project over the last year was to split MARC records based on the data in 007, 300, and 856 fields. So here's an example that we like to use a lot because it's the Wizard of Oz film. And you'll see that even though all of this is in one MARC record, it does not represent a single resource. There are 8 007 fields. They correspond to the 8 300 fields that are listed. And from a MARC point of view and from a viewing in an OPAC point of view, this might be reasonably clear what you're trying to express. But when it went into BibFrame, this was the public display that was created. So what it looks like is a lot of duplication and 8 kinds of extent and 2 different media types and 3 different carriers. So it's all jumbled together. And that meant that when you tried to transform this data from BibFrame into MARC, you did not get the differentiation of your 8 007s and your 8 different 300s and all of the other technical fields in the 3XX block in MARC. So to remedy this, what we did is created a process that addresses the treatment of the MARC record before it's converted to BibFrame. And it splits a single MARC record that contains multiple resources into multiple MARC records. The first MARC record has all of the detail, that the notes, the subjects, all of the work level information, and then the first sort of manifestation level. Then the second MARC record would only have the technical specifications related to that particular resource. So it would be like the second 007 matched with the second 300. And then the conversion adds a MARC 758 field to link these two together. And then the MARC to BibFrame software was modified to read that 758 field and build an instance that is connected to the work record that was created so that we're not proliferating our BibFrame database with lots of tiny little meaningless works. Then the BibFrame to MARC process was modified to recombine all of these multiple BibFrame instances into a single MARC record that then has the paired 007 and 300 fields and a lot more of the 3-4x fields with the use of subfield 3 to differentiate between which resource you're describing. So here's an example of a MARC record that is less complicated than the Wizard of Oz. It's one MARC record that is reflecting a video disc with an accompanying CD. So all of the fields that the video disc are describing the video disc are in orange, and all of the sound recording fields are in green. And this one was actually pretty easy to split because the cataloger had thoughtfully included a lot of subfield 3s with consistent labeling. And this is a public OPAC representation from our BibFrame database of what this became. On the far left, you have the BibFrame work information, the title, the contributors, the subjects, the genre forms. In the middle, you have what I consider sort of the main instance, because it has the title, it would have the statement of responsibility, any notes, it has all of the identifiers, and then it also has the resource-specific fields, like the extent and the digital characteristics and the media and the sound characteristic. And then on the far right, we have the instance that was created for the audio disc. And it only has audio disc in square brackets as its title to reflect that it's not the complete instance. It's very much a resource-specific instance. And if you look at all of the pieces of information that are displaying, they're all the very technical details that are either coming from the 007 or the 300 or the 34X fields. And then this is an example of how that record appears when it's gone through BibFrame to MARC. You'll notice that there's still two 007s, but only the first 2 bytes are encoded and everything else is fill characters. And this was based on a requirement from our ILS office about what they needed for the LC pack to work for format limiting. And you'll notice that there are still 2 300s. And there are a lot more 340, 344, 346, and 347 fields, all of which are differentiated between the by the use of subfield 3. And the reason all of these fields have proliferated and they're not all in a single string is because we have retained the URIs that were created during the MARC to BibFrame conversion, and they're all in subfield zeros. And you could actually follow this practice now in your MARC cataloging. There is an LC PCC policy statement connected to this RDA rule. This is in the original RDA toolkit. And you could start creating separate 300 fields for every time you have a multiple 007 fields. It will help you in the future as you start converting your data from MARC to BibFrame. Data conversion here at the library, we never stop. And these are some of the topics that we are reviewing for changes later this year. We're looking at our structure of how relationships are built. Right now, there are some direct relationships where the conversion will just say continues by or continues and then build out a small working instance for a field, for example, that's coming from a 780 MARC tag. We want to switch this to a more indirect model where there's a related resource and a relationship which would match the existing contribution and role setup. We are working on some documentation for this to put on our GitHub page, so stay tuned on that. We're also starting a small pilot project with a few catalogers on using the performed music ontology for medium of performance fields. And if that is successful, we are going to evaluate how we convert the 048 and 382 fields to use the performed music ontology terminology for medium of performance instead of what's in the BibFrame ontology, because the performed music ontology is more detailed and more meaningful potentially for catalogers. And as always, there is lots of cleanup and deduplication because the more we work with converted data, the more duplications we find within the MARC format. And so that's the end of my little section, and I believe now we will go over to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Nate. And actually, thank you everybody to our presenters, Doug, Paul, Adina. Yeah, it's just so much information packed. And then, but then again, we are doing good for the time pretty much. And then also the question. Thank you, all the presenters actually responding to our QA. But Sai, is there anything we haven't covered yet?
Yeah. I think the Q&A box, like all the questions have been answered, but in the chat box, there's still some questions which are not answered. The last one is question, Jeanette. Question for Nat. Could you explain what is meant by mirroring a bulk change made to MARC on BibFrame? what is the process involved?
Yeah, sure. So when you make an edit to a bibframe description, that description is now a candidate for, it's out of sync with the MARC side. And so we would run a transformation from bibframe to MARC and update the MARC side with the equivalent information. And the same would be true if you made an edit in QuickMark and this was controlled by MARC, it would be transformed from MARC to bibframe using the transformation that we have. And update the linked data side of the database. So at all times within microseconds of each other, the records are equivalent, not the same, but each side knows what the other has.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate. And this is another question. I believe it's for the LC folks. Can you give an example of something that needs splitting?
I think that's for me. I think the easiest time to see when a MARC record we would want to split it for the MARC to bibframe conversion would be if it has multiple 007s. And there's also if it's what we have a lot of are records for the physical object and the digitized object. So you can look at, say, prints and photographs in particular in their catalog, and the individual images catalog, and there's also an 856 or 852 field that has a link to the digitized version, and we want to split those so that the one instance reflects the physical image and the other instance reflects the digitized image.
Thank you, Jody. Here's another question for both of you, and Nat and Jody, I think. Would you keep a mapping table with what will be missed on both sides upon mirroring?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because there is not a direct one-to-one mapping with everything, and the mapping keeps changing. And so if we don't keep track of that information, we're going to start having bigger discrepancies between the two data sets.
Okay, thank you, Ned. And here's another question. For the paired 007-300 physical description fields, what would that look like for catalog and DVD BD combo packs? Just two examples.
Yeah, I'm looking at the examples. Yeah, I haven't actually found in our catalog this particular example because it is one I want to test. I suspect that the conversion might pre-supply some subfield 3s based on other fields where, because one 007 would probably say Blu-ray and one 007 would probably say not Blu-ray. So that might be a way that we could differentiate the two. But I strongly suspect that we would be using subfield 3 to differentiate those two DVDs.
Okay, thank you, Jody. And the next question is, will organizations like ONAC and MLA be strongly encouraged to develop best practices to straighten some of those issues out?
They are certainly welcome to start exploring these issues. The transformations that we are doing, it's pretty much, we're the only library that's experimenting with this right now, but I think if it was to become more widespread, we would definitely want more we would definitely want more communities that are more familiar with these practices to be involved in decisions.
Thank you, Jody. Here's a question, I think, for Paul. Will Marvel be fully integrated into the ALMA Ex Libris system?
I'm not so sure about that. I think Sinopia will be. Sinopia is another linked data editor that's used by a lot of catalogers and was tested in the linked data for production initiative. And Sinopia is a good tool to be integrated into ALMA because it's been tested across multiple institutions. Margo was only done at the Library of Congress, so Sinopia has the extra value of being of that scalability having been used across multiple libraries. So I believe Adina might have a
Yeah.
better answer, but I would suggest that it's Sinopia that will be used in Ex Libris, in the Ex Libris product.
So I'd be happy to expand on that. Right now, we're testing with our focus group, working with Sinopia, cataloging Sinopia and sending the records to Alma with API integration. But I want to comment that Alma is an open platform, meaning any system that will provide API services we can integrate with. So if it's planned from Arbor, we can allow this as well. Again, it would also always require testing and integrations and seeing that the workflows are supported the same. Assuming that working with BibFrame, it would work. We're also expanding our capabilities to other linked data formats as needed. But again, we are an open platform and therefore we can integrate with any system that provides APIs.
Here's another question for Jody. During your transformation, you are using multiple fields, subfields in MARC to distribute them widely. When doing in BibFrame, how does this process become seamless and not time-consuming in the cataloging world?
Well, I suppose I suspect that these sorts of picky practices that we're doing right now may become less picky over time as more libraries start using BibFrame and the community also begins to accept a different level of MARC record that's being distributed. But it's probably too soon to have a definitive answer.
I think there's still another question for you. Jody, you mentioned we could be adding multiple 300 fields every time we have multiple 007s. What if the multiple 007 refer to one resource, like a streaming video, 007C and V both describe one video file? How would that be handled?
We haven't run into this particular use case yet. The one that we have explored a little bit is podcasts, because our catalogers treat a podcast as a serial and an audio recording and possibly an integrating resource. I don't have one in front of me, so I'm just sort of guessing. And right now, we've made the sort of decision that we're not going to split that sort of a record into multiple instances, because all of those things look like they might be separate resources, but they really aren't. And so I suspect that it might be the same with streaming video, where we would write exceptions into the conversion where a streaming video is treated differently. And then we would be really, really dependent on really consistent data in probably the 007 and the 300, so that we could key the program based on the certain values in those fields.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are, I think,
almost out of time.
fine. Yeah, so yeah.
Thank you to
unfortunately,
our
we should wrap it up. So thank you so much for our presenters again, Adina, Doug, Paul, Jody, and Nate, for such information-packed, stimulating presentations. And again, thank you for the core to core to sponsoring and coordinating. Okay, let me just put that. Oop. All right. Coordinating the session. We will post the recording and the slides, and hopefully we can also record all that the Q&A and the chat as well. And once available, we will make it available. And as I mentioned, we will further explore the MARC format and the linked data possibility in our part 2 session in next week. So please register through the IG Week website or the scan this barcode, QR code, or so and then we will also send another reminder for the part 2. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.